What is interesting, why we have to consider in this sense the relationship between Plato and Aristotle is that in this sense Plato developed a specific type of metaphysical idea that Aristotle tried to reinterpret in idea of physics. In this sense, in particular, we have to consider the political thinking. In this sense, Plato and Aristotle developed the ideas in relation with the ancient Greek city-state. In this sense, as a specific type of independence city. This is really interesting because the idea of empire in the ancient Greek society could also exist, but at the same time, we know that in this sense, the idea of empire it was only in relation also with the idea of hegemony of a specific type of city-states that, in any case, would wanted to maintain his exclusivism. Therefore, the Greek people in relation with their city-state were really closed. For example, in this sense, the ancient Greek city-states were really different from Rome because Rome learned to be more inclusive than the Greek city-states. In fact, there is, as a matter of fact, the empire of the Greek city-state as the Delian League, the city-states in relation with Athens that were allies of Athens, and the Spartan League didn't develop so important empires as Rome and for so much time. This is really interesting because in front of Rome, if we have to compare these two type of empire, the three types of empires, or the empires of Greeks and the empire of Rome, Rome maintained his empire for a long century, for a long time in relation with the ancient Greek empires. But on the other hand, we have to understand that the idea of Plato and the idea of Aristotle in relation with empire, it is a sort of criticize of the empire in a different type of way. In fact, according to Plato, we have to consider the idea of city-states, but the idea of empire, according to Plato, could be better only in relation with the idea of the defense of the Greek people against the Persians. This is really interesting because, according to Plato, the empire is not so important to conquer something, but is important to create a specific type of relationship between Greek city-states to defend something. This is really, really interesting because if Plato, according to Plato, the city-states have to be in relation with them, had to create a specific type of defense to defend their territories against the Persian. In this sense, according to Plato, in a sort of way, the Persians, the barbarians, were a problem for the Greeks, as historically we understand. In particular, we know that at the beginning of the 5th century BC, the Persians tried to conquer the Greek city-states, in particular Athens and Sparta. But we know that in any case, Plato had this type of idea against the Persians because after the Peloponnesian War that Plato saw, because he was born after some year. Plato was born in 428 or 427. We know that the Peloponnesian War began in the 431. Therefore, Plato was born some years after the beginning of the Peloponnesian War. Plato know that after the Peloponnesian War, there was the Corinth War after the defeat of Athens from Sparta, because Sparta developed a deal with the Persian Empire to have the money to support itself against Athens. Therefore, in the end of the Peloponnesian War, with the gold of the Persian Empire, Sparta succeeded and maintained his forces, and Athens in the end collapsed. And Athens in the end was defeated by Sparta thanks to the gold of the Persian Empire. This is really, really interesting because therefore arrived the Corinth War, where the city-states fought between them, and in the end, in this sense, as a sort of cause of a Persian Empire, the city-states continue to fight between them, and the force economically also of the city-states was, in a sort of way, was defeated. In fact, the next hegemony after the last hegemony of the last cities, the last Greek hegemony, Thebes. We know Athens, Sparta, and then Thebes. The last hegemony of the ancient Greek history properly, it was the Macedonian hegemony. Macedonians that in any case were a sort of barbarians in relation with Greeks because they were not Greeks. This is really really interesting. And Plato, when thought about this, thought that in this sense, if we have to consider an empire, we have to consider an empire to the defense of the city states in relation with them. Therefore, a sort of confederation of peace, as Immanuel Kant would like to theorize, to limit the Persian Empire. Therefore, the idea of metaphysics in Plato is a connection with the idea of physics in relation with city states. The main idea we can understand, the main idea of objective rule, objective law, objective morality, what is the main good, what is good against bad, only when we try to connect the city states between them. This is a possibility, in particular, if we read the sixth letter in relation with the seventh letter. In fact, Plato went to Syracuse and failed in his mission to try to explain what is the good philosophy to the two tyrants, Dionysus the first, Dionysus the second. But if we take the sixth letter, we understand in this case that Plato supported the idea, if the sixth letter it was of Plato, of a confederation. In any case, it is important that in the academia, probably Plato explained this idea of the true idea of the pure idea of demiurge that assemble things. Therefore, if demiurge assemble things and creates the true morality, therefore there exists, because only Greeks understand the true morality, the idea of objective morality that only Greeks could understand. And if this it is true, therefore Greeks indirectly had to maintain a specific type of connection between them to defend their territories. Therefore, according to Plato, there is a natural law against the Persians. This is really, really interesting because a specific type of way anticipated the idea of natural law that in the Middle Ages arrived in Christianity point of view. In fact, Plato supported the demiurge, supported a monism, supported a god who assembled things. It's not a case that in the Middle Ages, God, in relation with Christianity, to support the territories of a Christianity. With a different type of right, but are not the same thing, but are similar things, this type of arguments. This is really interesting. The idea of empire to defend this type of empire, but Plato in relation with the city state. According to Aristotle, in this sense, instead, on the contrary, in relation with Plato, there is the critics of empire, because Aristotle, it was in that period where Alexander the Great, in Aristotle, it was the teacher of Alexander the Great. It is that period where Aristotle teaches the philosophy of Alexander the Great, and we know that Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire, arriving through the India, the Western Persian Empire. But at the same time, we know that Aristotle could also had written that letter to Alexander the Great about how develop, how maintain, how engage with an empire, with another type of empire. And this is another problem, because if Plato tried to think about only Greeks in relation with Persians, and the main issue of Plato, it was how can create a specific type of connection with Greek city-states to maintain our freedom in relation with Persian Empire. According to Aristotle, the main problem is what is the future of a city-state when now there is Alexander the Great, that is a specific type of king that wanted to assimilate the Greeks on the one hand, and Aristotle probably support or not, we don't know surely Alexander, but at the same time, if problem of Plato it was Greeks against Persians, the problem of Aristotle it was the problem of the cultures between Greeks and Persians, because now if Plato considered in his world the idea that in any case Greeks were different by Persians, with Aristotle, with the period Aristotle, and with Alexander the Great, there was a specific type of connection with the peculiarity between Greeks and Persians. In fact, it is interesting that the letter that Aristotle could have written to Alexander, it was in the period of the Battle of Gaugamela of 331 BC. Therefore, Alexander, it was already had to try to conquer already the Persian Empire, and in any case, his expedition it was already begun. This is really interesting. And we have to think about this. On the one hand, Plato then thinks about the future of the city states in relation with another type of empire. Therefore, Plato tried to think about a confederation against an empire. Aristotle thinks in relation with the idea of connection between cultures in that period where Greeks, in any case, are not so important in relation with another type of hegemony, the Macedonians, but that Macedon, Alexander the Great, son of Philip II, that wants to conquer and succeeded to conquer another empire, assimilating these empires. In fact, indirectly, Aristotle, it was in that period where the city-state, it wasn't so more important, but at the same time, Alexander that wanted to assimilate and connect Greek's idea with Persian's idea. And probably Alexander didn't want to directly explain this, but indirectly, if Alexander created an empire and Alexander created an empire with the exportation of the Greek's idea in the Persian Empire, we know that a lot of people followed Alexander, individuals, a lot of individuals, intellectuals, soldiers, etc., that in the end arrived to do a lot of sons with the women, for example, of the Persian Empire. And this is another type of question, another type of issue that is really similar with, for example, the imperialism of Spain during the modern age, the early modern age. In fact, the first type of ideas against sons that were born from a Greek and a Persian woman, for example, a sort of it is not it is a sort of half blood in this sense according to the Greek ideas. It is the similar question. There was the similar question with the imperialism of Spain. It is true that Romans, instead, the ancient Romans, didn't consider this type of problem. According to Rome, it's not important where you were birth. But with Alexander the Great, this type of connection with oh, you are not Greek because you are connected with a woman that it was part of a Persian Empire. But Alexander indirectly tried to explain another type of world because exported Greeks outside the Greece. This is really interesting, I think, and explain a problem that it will be rethink only if this problem arrived and was developed and was birthed in 4th century BC with Alexander, and directly because Greeks were really considered really well their independence according also with their blood of Greeks, a sort of blood, much more a culture of Greeks. And the culture of Greeks in relation with other culture, the culture of Greeks is much better according to Greeks than the other culture. Therefore, it wasn't so a question of blood. Probably, yeah, I made a mistake. I said a blood, but a sort of culture. The culture, the idea of culture. The Greeks didn't want to connect their culture with others, but Alexander did this. And this is a problem according to the Greek people. In fact, Greeks, in any case, also in the Roman period, maintain their idea of exclusivism. They didn't want to create a connection with other cultures. Greek consider them also only always the best into the world. But there are some connections that are interesting because this type of idea between sons that, for example, in the early modern age, Spaniards that arrived in the New World and did some sons with other people, and who are these men that are Spanish but in another world. The question of Creole in the New World, Spanish men or women that were born in another world, the New World. And the question if who are these men that are Spanish according to the Spanish people who lived in Spain. Yeah, but the inclusivism is important because Alexander the Great created that idea that Romans arrived to think. The idea that the exportation and the assimilation in relation with the inclusivism take for other culture their ideas to englobe that ideas into our culture. This is really, really interesting. Bye.